Hello and welcome to Whispering Pines. We love to entertain you as you are drifting off to sleep. If you enjoy our content, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. In this video, we have a few spooky tales to tell as you settle in for the night. Story 1. The House on Norfield Road. If I'd sold the house when I had the chance, none of this would have happened. It sat at the edge of a forgotten stretch of forest in New Hampshire, built in 1873 by my great-great-grandfather, Elias Norfield, a preacher turned recluse, who founded a splinter sect called the Hollowing Way. I inherited the place through a twist of fate, a last living relative clause that kicked in after the sudden deaths of 3 cousins I never met. I didn't even know the Norfields had a family estate. My mother never spoke about them. She rarely spoke about anything from her childhood, now that I think about it. The will required I spend 30 nights in the house before I could sell it. Some old stipulation, tied up in layers of legal and spiritual tradition. 30 unbroken nights, body and soul intact. The clause read, a peculiar turn of phrase, but I needed the money. So I packed up and drove out there, convinced it would be nothing more than a month of boredom and creaky floorboards. It started slowly, as these things always do. The house was a classic Second Empire Victorian, 3 stories, steep mansard roof, wrap-around porch with rot-softened boards. The windows had been boarded shut, but from the inside, which I found strange. The first few days were uneventful. Cold drafts, distant footsteps I blamed on squirrels in the walls. The power was unreliable, so I used candles most nights. There was a musty smell, like wet wood and faintly sweet rot. The kind of smell you don't notice right away. It finds you in your clothes, your hair, the back of your throat. The dreams started on night 4. Always the same. A woman standing at the foot of my bed, in black morning dress and veil, whispering words I couldn't make out. Her mouth didn't move, but I could hear her. Inside my head, "The cradle must rock," she said once. Another time, "I will fill what was taken." On night 7, I found the cradle. It wasn't in the attic or nursery. It was in the basement, behind a sealed wooden door that hadn't been there the day before. The cradle was small, Victorian style, carved with symbols, crosses, spirals, and what looked like hollow eyes. Inside it was a single item, a rattle made of bone. I threw it out the back window and bolted the door shut. The next morning, the rattle was in my bed. From then on, the nights changed. I would wake to find chairs turned toward me, doors open that I knew I'd closed. The house made sounds that were too human. Breathing, a cough, the distant murmur of prayer. I started locking the bedroom door at night. Didn't help. The locks reversed themselves. Hinges would be on the opposite side the next day. Hallways changed length. Once, I swear I walked up 2 flights of stairs and still ended up in the same room I'd left. The house was folding, rewriting itself. I called a priest, Father Lane, a friend of a friend. He came out on night 12, stayed for exactly 40 minutes, then left without a word. When I tried to contact him the next day, I found out he had died that morning in his rectory, apparently of a brain hemorrhage. He'd written something on the back of one of my electric bills. I found it tucked into my coat. "She has teeth, but no tongue." I stopped sleeping. By night 15, I was delirious. I saw things in mirrors. Not behind me, but instead of me. My reflection would blink when I didn't. Sometimes it mouthed words silently, smiling wide. The nursery began to fill itself. Each day, more old toys appeared. Hand-sewn dolls, cracked wooden horses, tiny porcelain shoes, all arranged lovingly. And in the center of it all, the cradle. A bone rattle lay neatly beside it. I tried to destroy it. Set it on fire, buried it. Drove it out into the woods and hurled it into a ravine. It was always back in the nursery by morning. On night 19, I woke to find the walls of the house bleeding. Not metaphorically. Real, wet blood trickled from the seams of the wallpaper. It pooled under doorways, soaked into my socks. The smell was unbearable. I ran outside, barefoot, screaming, but there was no outside anymore. Just mist. I walked straight for what felt like hours, through forest that looped and curved and breathed around me. At one point, I thought I saw someone, a pale girl in a tattered dress, standing still between two trees. She was holding something in her hands. The rattle. I ran back to the house, except the house wasn't in the same place. It had moved. It was deeper now, nestled in the trees, darker than before. Like it had taken root. But I went in. What else could I do? The remaining days blurred together. I marked them on my arm with a knife. One line for each sunrise I survived. The house became quieter. Still. Not because it had settled, but because it was waiting. Then night 30. I woke at midnight to the sound of a lullaby. A music box tune, slow and warped. The air was thick with perfume and decay. Every candle in the house lit itself. I felt warm. I felt wanted. I followed the sound. To the nursery. She was there. The woman from my dreams. Closer now, clear. She stood beside the cradle, rocking it gently, cooing to something within. When she turned to me, I saw her eyes were gone. Not gouged, but hollow, carved, like tunnels. She said nothing aloud, but I heard her voice. You stayed. I nodded. I don't know why. I just did. Then you understand. She stepped back and gestured for me to look. I walked to the cradle. Inside was me, a baby version of myself. Pale, still, eyes shut. Its chest rose and fell gently, breathing. He took from me, she said, and now I could hear her behind me, even though I hadn't heard her move. So I take from you. I turned. She was gone. But the walls of the nursery were covered now, in names. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all scratched into the wood. Dates beside them. 30-day increments. I found mine at the bottom of the list. Today's date marked the end. I don't remember leaving the room. But I'm writing this now, from the attic, in the one corner of the house that still feels still. Outside the window, there's no forest anymore. Just blackness. Like the house has been lifted, suspended in void. The baby in the cradle cries sometimes, softly. I think I am its father now. Or maybe I always was. The floorboards whisper to me. So does the wallpaper. There's a mirror nailed to the ceiling above the old bed. Sometimes, when I look up, I don't see myself anymore. I see the house. Watching. Waiting. Rocking itself to sleep. Take a deep breath in and out. Let the shadows settle, and allow your body to sink a little deeper into rest. Our next story is just around the corner. Story 2. Echoes from the Hatch. They say space is the final frontier, but I've been to a place far more alien. Darker, colder, older, where light dies, and time feels like a rumor. Not above us, but below. 10,000 feet beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, in the shadow of the Mariana Trench. My name is Dr. Lena Morris, oceanographer and geophysical surveyor. I was one of 5 crew members stationed aboard Delta 9, an experimental research habitat designed for long-term habitation on the ocean floor. The project was part of a joint initiative between several international agencies, with a vague mix of goals: biological observation, seismic mapping, and acoustic anomaly detection. That last one, we thought, was bureaucratic filler. It wasn't. The first 90 days were uneventful, filled with cataloging abyssal fauna, recording mineral compositions, and playing cards during long surface signal delays. We had everything we needed. Water recyclers, air scrubbers, hydroponic greens, protein paste. And outside the thick acrylic windows, blackness, infinite and absolute, interrupted only by the occasional flicker of bioluminescent life. Then we heard the signal. It came through our sonar equipment around 2:13 a.m. A pulse, rhythmic, measured. Not whale song, not tectonic activity. Too steady. Every 43 seconds, a sound like a deep exhale through stone. At first, we thought it was some kind of geological vent, but its frequency didn't vary. It didn't echo, it radiated. And it wasn't just the sound. You could feel it in your bones. That's when everything started to change. Dr. Kim, our linguistic specialist and resident xenotheorist, her word, not mine, became obsessed. She claimed the signal was artificial. It's a pattern, she said. Not natural, not random, and not meaningless. We were scientists. We investigated, and we found it. Roughly a kilometer northeast of Delta 9, down a trench we hadn't previously mapped, something impossible. A hatch. Not a cave, not a vent. A metallic hatch, 10 meters in diameter, perfectly circular, fused into the seabed, covered in silt and coral, but smooth. No rust, no visible welds or bolts. It pulsed dimly, in time with the signal. We sent down a remote drone, the moment its mechanical arm brushed the surface. The hatch opened. Not with force. It just unsealed, like an eyelid parting after a long sleep. The drone descended into the darkness. We lost signal after 17 seconds. Against better judgment, we planned a manned dive. Sam and Aaron volunteered. I stayed behind to monitor. They descended in full suits, tethered by reinforced cable, carrying shoulder-mounted lights and oxygen for 3 hours. At minute 9, they entered the hatch. At minute 11, they went silent. I watched on the monitor as they disappeared into the black. No light returned, no comms, no tension on the cable. Just gone. We pulled the line back up. It came back clean. No tears, no trace of them. They had vanished. Panic set in. Arguments erupted. We debated evacuation. But communication with the surface had gone patchy. Not dead, just scrambled. As if the signal had started bleeding into our own systems. Kim became erratic, speaking in strange rhythms, scribbling glyphs on the walls. She stopped sleeping. Then one night, I woke up and found her standing in the airlock, smiling. She opened it. The water rushed in. She died instantly. But not before she whispered, "It remembers." That was her last phrase. Not a cry for help. A statement. I was alone now. Only me and the hum of the habitat, or what was left of it. The walls felt like they were closing in. The air tasted strange, faintly metallic, like blood on a battery. And the pulse, the signal, had changed. It wasn't outside anymore. It was inside. Inside the station. Inside me. I started hearing voices when I slept. Not dreams. Whispers, real, rising from the pressure vents and water tanks. Speaking in chorus, layered and echoing, like thousands of versions of me murmuring from the past. They said things I didn't understand. Then they said my name. I tried to destroy the signal equipment. I shattered the sonar panel. It kept playing. I ripped out the speakers. The hum came through the walls. I tried to shut off the power. The lights went out, but the station didn't stop. Its structure seemed to glow faintly from the inside, as if something behind the metal walls had started breathing. I should have died then, cut the oxygen, flooded the tanks. But something wouldn't let me. The food kept growing, the air stayed breathable, and time lost its meaning. I would wake and sleep and wake again and find the lights unchanged, my hair no longer growing, my skin no longer wrinkling. My watch spun in circles. I don't know how long I've been here. Then one day, I saw them, Sam and Aaron, outside the station, walking calmly along the ocean floor, in full suits, except the suits were open. Their helmets were cracked, and they were smiling. Their eyes were black, not from pressure, from something else. I watched as they pressed their hands against the observation window, and I swear to God the glass bent inward. They stayed there for hours. I stopped seeing them after that. But the hatch, the one we found, appeared again, not where it had been, closer. Right outside Delta 9. Its iris-like seal pulsing like a heartbeat. I tried one last time to send a message to the surface. I recorded a log, a warning, but every time I played it back, it wasn't my voice. It was Kim's, saying things I've never heard before. The hatch opened again this morning. I didn't see it. I felt it. Like an old memory surfacing, cold, heavy, and soaked in regret. I don't know if I'm still Lena Morris. I don't know if I ever was. The station no longer smells like rust or ocean. It smells like earth, fresh dirt, a grave. I'm writing this now, or thinking it, in my bunk, which feels more like a womb every day. I'm no longer scared. There's nothing left to fear. The ocean didn't consume us. It remembered us. We weren't the first. And we won't be the last. I hear them now. Beneath the waves, above the sky, inside the signal, calling me home. You're safe now. The last story has passed, and the night carries you gently forward. Another tale awaits, but for now, just breathe. Story 3. The Smiling Thing in Apartment 302. I should have known something was wrong when I saw the knocker. You know those old brass knockers, shaped like lion heads or curled fists? This one looked like a human hand, not stylized or decorative. It looked real, down to the wrinkles in the knuckles and faint lines in the palm. Cold and tarnished, with long fingers that curled just enough to suggest they might move on their own. That was the first thing I noticed about apartment 302. The second was that I never saw anyone go in or out. I moved into Sycamore Arms on the 1st of the month. It was one of those horseshoe-shaped buildings, 3 stories of faded stucco and iron balconies, all surrounding a dry fountain filled with old cigarette butts and plastic bags. Rent was cheap, no lease, no background check, just a $675 deposit, first month up front, and a handshake with a man named Mr. Baird. Mr. Baird was pale and stiff, with thinning white hair and one eye that didn't track right. He wore a suit that smelled like mothballs and looked like he hadn't changed since the 80s. He told me he was just the caretaker, but I never met a landlord, never signed a contract. He handed me the key to 304, said, "Stay quiet, respect the building, don't go bothering anyone," and that was it. I moved in that night. The first 3 nights were quiet. The place wasn't glamorous. Popcorn ceilings, yellowed carpet, kitchen faucet that screamed when you turned it too far. But it was mine. After months of couch surfing and sleeping in my car, I welcomed the solitude. Then, on night 4, I started hearing laughter. It wasn't loud, barely audible, like it was muffled behind a wall. Not constant either. It came and went in waves, short bursts of chuckling, followed by silence. Sometimes a long, wheezing giggle that made the hairs on my arms stand up. I assumed it was the TV next door, until I realized the sound wasn't coming from any of the units adjacent to mine. It was coming from 302 directly across the hall. I stood in front of that door one night, listening. The laughter stopped the second I got close. I knocked lightly. No answer. The light under the door flicked off. I went back to my apartment and locked the door. But even with the deadbolt in place, I felt watched. The kind of feeling you get on a train when someone stares at you from 2 rows away. That pressure behind your eyes, even if you don't look. The next morning, I asked the woman in 301, an older lady named Trina, if anyone lived in 302. Her eyes darkened immediately. "Don't worry about that apartment," she said. I pressed a little. She shook her head. "Just stay out of the hallway after dark." That night, I ignored her advice. At 12:42 a.m., the laughter started again. This time, louder, sharper. It rose and fell like it was reacting to something. Like someone inside was watching a funny movie, or being told a joke over the phone. I opened my door and stepped into the hall. The laughter continued. I walked up to the door of 302 and listened closely. What I heard wasn't just laughter. It was breathing, wet, heavy, right on the other side. I turned to go back to my place, and the doorknob clicked behind me. The door opened just a sliver, maybe 2 inches, enough for a pale eye to peek through. Not a full face, just an eye. Huge, unblinking, surrounded by gray skin that looked like it hadn't seen sunlight in years. And a voice said, "You dropped your smile." I didn't drop anything. I backed away slowly. The door shut without a sound. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I tried to find Mr. Baird. His apartment on the ground floor was empty. No furniture. Dust in the corners. It looked like it hadn't been lived in for months. I tried calling the number he'd given me. Disconnected. I started asking neighbors. Most ignored me. A guy from 106 muttered, "302's cursed," and slammed his door. A woman on the second floor asked if I was the replacement. When I asked what she meant, she shut her blinds. By the second week, the smiling started. It was everywhere. Etched into my mirror. Scratched into the inside of my cereal boxes. Smiley faces in the condensation on my windows. I threw out every pen I owned after I found one scribbling smiley faces on its own in the middle of the night. I tried to stay out late, sleep at friends' places, but something always brought me back. A lost wallet, a thunderstorm, a missed train. Every time I tried to leave for good, I found myself back at Sycamore Arms before midnight, waiting for the laughter, waiting for the thing in 302. One night, it knocked on my door. I didn't move. It knocked again. Then slowly, click, the doorknob turned. Deadbolt held. But something pushed against it. No words, no breathing. Just pressure. Then, the sound of someone dragging their fingers down the door. I looked through the peephole. There was no one there. Only a single piece of paper on the floor. I picked it up. It was a photo of me sleeping, in my bed, taken from inside my apartment. And in the background, barely visible in the shadows near the closet, was a smiling shape. I don't know what it wants. I've boarded up my windows, blocked the vents, unplugged every device in the house. But the laughter keeps getting closer. It doesn't come from across the hall anymore. It comes from the walls, and the mirror, and the drain. It keeps saying the same thing, over and over. Where is your smile? Where is your smile? Where is your smile? I've started practicing in the mirror, stretching my mouth. Learning how to hold it just right. Because if I don't, I think it's going to give me one. Float here a little while longer. When you're ready, we'll take another step into the soft, shadowed unknown. Story 4. The Bone Orchard. I inherited the land from an uncle I never met. The letter came from a law firm in Tennessee with thick paper and antique typeface, informing me that one Cornelius Harlan, my mother's estranged older brother, had passed away and left me a 35-acre property near a place called Cold Bridge Hollow. I was stunned. I didn't even know he existed. My mother barely spoke about her childhood, and when she did, it was only vague mentions of hard times and a family she had no reason to go back to. So I'd assumed they were all gone. Turns out, one of them wasn't. Cornelius lived alone on a stretch of Appalachian land, bordered by thick pine forests and a dry, unnamed creek bed. The map enclosed in the envelope showed nothing nearby but dirt roads and a half-collapsed barn drawn in ink like a scar. I was between jobs, had just left a city I hated, and felt unmoored from everything. So I figured, why not? Maybe I'd sell it, or live in it for a while. My lease was up, and the timing felt strange in the way fate sometimes does. I rented a car and drove down the spine of the Appalachians until the paved road turned to gravel, and the gravel turned to mud. That's when I saw the sign, hand-painted, swinging on rusted chains, Harlan Orchard. But there were no apple trees, just bones. The house itself was a 2-story cabin, warped with age, but still standing. The shutters were lopsided. The chimney was cracked, but the windows were intact, and the porch had a rocking chair that still moved, as if someone had just gotten up. Inside was worse. The air was stale and heavy. Dust coated every surface. Old newspapers were stacked waist-high in the corners. Animal skulls lined a shelf over the fireplace, bleached white, polished smooth. Goat, coyote, owl. Some I couldn't identify. Every wall was covered in framed photographs. Not of people, but of trees. Gnarled and bent, black and white. Some looked burned. Others looked like they had faces. The kitchen table was set for one. A single plate, fork, knife, a bowl filled with dirt. The orchard was behind the house, past the rotted barn and overgrown fence. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of small wooden posts stuck out of the ground, arranged in rows like grave markers. They were bone white, carved from femurs, some still etched with notches and names. None of them bore fruit, no leaves, no bark. Just dry skeletal branches, reaching out like fingers from the cracked earth. I crouched next to one and saw a jawbone half buried in the soil. Human. That night, I woke to the sound of digging. Not far from my window. Slow, rhythmic. I opened the curtain and saw shapes moving in the orchard. Shadows hunched over the soil, clawing at it with bare hands. One stood up, and its head turned toward me, even though I hadn't made a sound. It smiled. Its mouth was wrong, stretched too far, filled with soil and broken teeth. The shape pointed to the window. Then it pointed down, beneath my feet. I didn't sleep. In the morning, I found a journal tucked inside the chimney flue, scorched on one edge, wrapped in twine. Cornelius's handwriting was cramped, looping, almost manic. The orchard feeds. It grows where we bury. No apples, no peaches, only roots and keef. It remembers the old ways, the first rites. We don't plant trees here. We plant people. My father, his father, and now me. I am the last of the line, and the orchard is hungry. I tried to leave the next day. The car wouldn't start, not even a click. My phone had no signal. The driveway was blocked by a new tree that hadn't been there the day before. Its trunk was pale and pulsing, like skin stretched over bone. I swear I saw it breathe. I ran back inside and locked the door. That night, the house groaned and shifted. Voices whispered behind the walls, scratching sounds from the cellar, laughter from inside the stove. I turned every light on, and then they all went out. I hid in the bedroom, clutching the journal, trying to piece together some escape plan. That's when I noticed the names. Each page in the back of the book had a date and a name, going back 100 years. And the last one, mine, scrawled in black ink, today's date. A note beneath it, seed accepted. The next morning, I found footprints made of blood outside my window. A ring of rocks had been arranged around the house. I stepped outside and felt the ground breathe beneath me. The orchard had grown. Dozens more trees, tall, pale, a smell of rot thick in the air. Some of the branches had fingers. I understand now. I wasn't given the land. I was given to it. Cornelius didn't leave me a gift. He fed the orchard. It needs caretakers. It needs seed. The bloodline must continue, and I'm the last. I haven't slept in days. Every time I blink, I see the trees getting closer. I hear them whispering, calling me by name, calling me home. I can't leave. I think I'm already buried. Thank you for joining me in this journey through shadows and whispers. As the story fades, let your mind soften and your body relax. Allow the calm to wash over you as you drift deeper into rest. If you enjoyed this tale, please like the video and subscribe so we can share many more journeys into the night together. Sleep well, and until next time, may your dreams be peaceful and your night calm.